business tips to successfully start and run your business so your business doesn't run you. And more importantly, we provide personal development tools to create a better version of yourself to provide the solid foundation for your life and business to stand upon. This is the Biz Reveal, and I'm your host, Craig Sawyer. As a business owner and author, Terry Begue strives to help others who are where he once was. Terry uses his more than 30 years in business to coach others how to develop a personal brand, grow a business by using other people's words, and build trust with potential customers. According to Terry, the first step is believing that you can do anything you set your mind to. After the show, learn more at www.terrybegue.com. That's TerryBegue.com. This is the Biz Reveal podcast with this week's guest, Terry Begue.
When I graduated high school, I thought I was going to go to college and quickly learned that was I think that ended up being like the toughest 4 weeks of my life, not yours. But once I quit that, I knew I tried to get several different jobs and I never got fired, but I never stuck around very long either. And I finally figured it out is that I'm really, really independent. And there's a mindset that entrepreneurs have, whether they realize it or not. And one of those characteristics is they're almost unemployable.
Right. Yeah.
So I realized right away that I loved painting houses, but what I loved even more than that is that I didn't have a boss. But that was tough. I mean, I should have took a job working for a painter and learned the ropes and everything. I just spent one summer with my older brother who was putting himself through college and really didn't know a whole lot. And I paid a price for that. It took me 7 or 8 years to get up to speed.
Yeah.
But once the big changing point in my life was when my wife said 3 little words to me, because I think I might have mentioned this to you on an earlier conversation, is I can boil it down to 3 words in my life that changed everything. And they were, Terry, I'm pregnant. And
that will definitely do it.
It's like I had a whole mindset shift and I no longer, the life I'd been living was going to be good enough. We were struggling to pay the bills. I didn't have work and I was avoiding bill collectors. And it was just, it turned out it affected my entire life because no matter how successful my business gets, I still feel it's not successful enough. But I started it 43 years ago. And I still love what I do. I'm still a painting contractor, but we specialize like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I keep narrowing our niche more and more and more because we keep getting so much business. I can't paint for everyone. It turned out that what I found that we're best at and I make my best money is when we're outside spraying aluminum sided homes.
Okay. Even
though it's in the wintertime here in Ohio, there's only 7-8 months tops that you can paint outside. But even with that, our business is so crazy successful. I usually can do about 100 houses with just a 3-man crew. And we just cruise through them. The pay is great. And I learned the process and that whole thing about owning a niche business and how much more profitable that is. And even with this COVID last year, I thought, oh no, what's going to happen now?
Right.
The service industry got crazy busier than ever because people couldn't go on vacation. So they were looking at their home. They had extra money with the stimulus money. And I stayed 45 houses booked ahead all summer long,
wow,
which is just insane because most years it's like 20 or 25. The crazy thing about that is though, Craig, I haven't advertised now since 2012 and my business still continues to grow. But what changed for me, what I figured out, even though I started getting on the right track when my wife said that to me, that was back when I was 28. It took me another maybe 8 or 10 years to figure out how to really grow your business. And I looked around at what other painting contractors were doing that I wasn't. And I finally figured out the ones that are really, really busy, that keep their pipeline full, they're the most successful ones. So then I stopped and I kind of started over again in a way. I looked at buyer motives, what creates buyer trust, what causes owners to hire you, what are the things why they don't hire you. In the wintertime when I was slow, I sold cars, I sold furniture, I even sold vacuum cleaners to learn how to sell. And then I started just talking to my customers one after another, giving them testimonial forms. And what I was finding out is I thought the job was the most important part. I mean, the quality of the work you did is important, but it's not, I found it's not the most important. What I'm trying to say is if you focus more on your people or interpersonal skills, you'll find success faster than if you work on your technical skills. And
Is that what you
that was
found? Like
huge
when
for
you were
me.
working with these other companies that were successful, were you talking to them specifically, like saying, "Hey, man, what is it that you guys are doing?" Or were you kind of observing them from afar to see if you can kind of catch on?
It was a little tough at first because a lot of them, they don't want to give away their secrets,
Sure.
especially
Right.
if you're in the same neighborhood. And this was before the internet, even, as like I mentioned, I'm old. So I started before we had cell phones or internet. But then once we did, I was able to talk to other painters from around the country, and we would all share secrets and ideas. And I joined some networking groups. But really what it all boiled down to was the ones that had the most work, that were crazy busy, were so busy that they would only pick the very easiest, nicest jobs to do and work for the customers that were the easiest to work for and paid
Right.
the quickest. And it was guys like me back then that were getting all the other jobs, the leftovers.
Right.
So once I figured that part out, and then I figured out what it is customers want and what they don't want, I was surprised to hear that it wasn't necessarily the best job. They didn't want the best job money could buy. They wanted to work with someone who was easy to work with, who kept their promises. And as this has gone on over the years, I get more and more successful. And I thought, geez, I think I should share this. So I wrote a book about it. I spent about the last 3 or 4 years bringing it all together. And I finally published it last year on Amazon, and it's titled Attract and Keep Customers for Life. And it's so true to who I am, and people that read it, I get great reviews, and it is about those people skills more so than the technical skills.
Yeah, for sure.
So
And
I still paint. I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to say, and that's one of the things it's hard to come by anymore because of the internet. That everything has gotten so impersonal because we have the internet, right? Everybody's texting through phones. They're not actually talking to each other. They're, posting on Facebook. They're not actually talking to each other. So getting those personal relationships with people is actually getting harder and harder. So when you do run across a company or a person who does emphasize that, it really is something special because you just don't see it every day anymore. So I think it's like putting out that extra effort to be able to do that, to reach somebody and get into the personal space there.
Yeah. And I think it's getting worse as technology increases. It's getting easier and easier for people
And
to
COVID.
have conversations without talking,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. And COVID, where they're forcing us to be apart, right? Hey,
Yeah.
don't get next to each other. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
making it even tougher.
And that's starting to become a real challenge. I'm giving a talk in a few weeks, and the topic is your personal brand, and how do you develop trust when you don't meet the customer face to face, and looking at different ways to pick up that authority status so people will have trust in you even though they haven't met you. And I still try to meet every one of my customers. I try to even go over the bid with them if I can, but it's so much easier, I know, to just email it, and I send over proof of insurance and product info and all that. And that does a lot for the selling, but there's just there's just no better way to connect than being face to face with the customer. Unless there's no other way. But in my industry, and most of the home service industry, it's kind of who my book is for. I talk about the number one thing that homeowners are looking for from a contractor is that they're looking for a company that's willing to build a relationship with them.
All right. Yeah. Spend time with them. So let's start at the beginning. If you can't keep a customer until you get a customer, right? So what is some of your tips for when you're first looking for that customer and you're trying to get out there in front of them? To find out what their needs are. You can't find out until you're talking to them. So how do you get out there in front of the customers initially?
Well, I try to do the marketing. When I was advertising, I was just aiming for certain types of customers. They knew in my marketing that we only did outside painting,
Okay.
and then started only doing aluminum and cedar siding, things that we could spray. And so and those were the people I would find. Occasionally I would get customers that had those labor intensive kind of jobs, the old peeled up house. And I took a few of those, but I learned the hard way to just don't, even when you're getting slow, you're better off avoiding those because they'll pull you down,
Yeah.
those kind of jobs. But then I started researching how to connect with these people. And I've read, tons of books. As you can see back there, they're all about becoming likable and believable and building trust and then wowing. And that's what my book's about is these 4 abilities that are really interpersonal skills. I call them, the 4 abilities are likability, believability, trustability, and wowability. And within each of those 4, there's 7 or 8 different lessons I have in there, how to connect, listen. The very first thing I do when I'm with the customers, I introduce myself, but then I shut up and I just listen to what they're saying, because That's what they want. Honestly, they don't even care about you at first until they know you understand what their issue is.
Sure. And so let's actually, I know you don't want to give away too much because you want people to buy the book, but let's put some teasers out there. When you say likability, obviously when you're talking to somebody, you're not going to click unless, that person likes you, right? They're not going to listen to you if you're just a jerk. And some people are just unlikable. Let's just be honest, right? Some people should not be in sales at all because they just don't have the types of personalities or the temperament to be likable. So if you are, let's say, a likable person already, what are the aspects of a person that you can work on? If it's something like, I can talk to people, but I feel like maybe I come across the wrong way. Maybe my sense of humor comes across the wrong way or something like that. What are some of the things that they should be looking at to consciously change or to adjust to be likable in that
okay,
arena?
Just so I'm sure I'm understanding you, you mean like if I was talking to someone to help them be more likable with their customers, what would be the steps?
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure. One of the first ones under my chapter and part of the book in likability would be, as I said, listen, pay attention and try and get the customer talking, which is usually easy to do because, if you bring up their favorite subject, just, ask open-ended questions that get them talking. Like, how long have you been considering having this done? How long have you lived here? Easy questions at first to just keep the conversation going. And I found that the people who like me the most are the ones that I just let talk.
Exactly.
And then there are other things to do, like look for commonality with my customers. As soon as I get to a job, if the garage door's open, I'll look in there real quick. Or if they invite me in the house, I'll look around for, say, pets or kids' toys or a swing set in the backyard, a workout area, golf clubs,
something
anything like that. Those are all opportunities to let them know that, I golf too. I have kids. Although I mention it quickly because I still keep that first part should be at least 80% about them. But I talk enough to let them know that I'm just a regular guy like they are too, because they don't just want they're more likely to hire you if they feel that you're more like them.
Sure.
Because they feel maybe you share the same values.
Sure. Yeah. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned the listening part of it. Yeah. People like to talk about themselves, right? And I mean, I think that's kind of a general rule for the most part. People like to talk about themselves. And it's kind of funny because a lot of business is directly related to personal lives as well. And if you go on a date with somebody, and it's been a long time for me, and I'm sure it has for you as well, but if you go on a date with somebody, I found that the person that you're on that date with, that first date, they really, really like you if you let them talk 80% of the time that you're on that date. If you're at dinner and you're just talking, you're like, so, tell me about you. And well, how'd that make you feel? And you're trying to learn more about them. They actually do like you more because they feel that interest that you have in them. So yes, it works. I mean, listening is, I would say at least 80%, if not greater. Then of course, being able to relate. And I think that's what you meant by commonality is that you can actually relate to them. As we were talking about before we started recording today was, when it comes to subjects that I'm just not interested in or not knowledgeable in, it's hard to find that commonality. And sometimes you have to work pretty hard to get there. But again, and sometimes it's just not a good mix. And I've had shows before where we've discussed that where, maybe the person I'm talking to loves my product. They love what I have to offer. They think it's the greatest thing ever, but they don't like me. It's just not a good fit. Like I don't work well with people who are really, really analytical. I'm not a real analytical guy. I'm more of a conversational kind of guy. I'm a lot looser and sense of humor and things like that. But if I have somebody who's analytical, hey man, I may not be the best person for you. Let me get you somebody who's more like you, same products, but now they're going to be happier because they can relate to the person they're talking to. So certainly, I love that.
Isn't that funny how that works like that? Because I say in my book, man, I tell a lot of stories in there. And there are times where my price is maybe 50% higher than another guy. And I know the other guy is an excellent painter and they still hire me because they prefer to work with people they understand. Yeah. And people don't give another real detailed proposal. Most people just say prep. Well, I write out what prep is. It's sanding the loose paint, priming the wood, filling the holes and caulking. And it creates more value when you can write a better written proposal. I have a blog going out, and just last week's blog was about how to write a proposal that'll hook the customer. And it's really just giving them more information than they really need.
Yeah. You know what I really like about that too is that's details. as you said, you could say prep, or you can actually say what the prep is. And something I'd be looking for in a painter is attention to detail. So just by the way that you do your invoices, that would tell me a little bit more about how you do your work as well. That attention to detail, if he does that on his invoice, he's going to do that on my house as well.
Yeah.
So I think that you can relate a lot of those things that way. That's awesome.
They're judging everything you do.
Absolutely.
Everything you say.
So that was listening and commonality. What else do you have in the likability section there?
In likability, commonality, understood. Oh my goodness, I got to think for a second.
That's the hardest part,
make
right?
you likable. Take an interest. I'm not thinking of anything right now. I'm drawing a blank on that one. Commonality, listen, understand, active listening. That's another thing that I talk about. A lot of people know there's actually a difference between listening and then there's active listening. A gentleman wrote a book, and I believe it was called 60 Seconds to Become Likable. And that's the thing he talks about is active listening, which is actually showing that you're listening, paying attention, looking at them while they're talking, but not staring at them like you're a crazy person, looking down and nodding your head to show that you're thinking about something, or hopefully something that they said, and little words that you can, say back like, oh, and then what happened? Or, oh my gosh, really? Just little things that show your interest that keep them talking. So that's kind of active listening. It's not leaning back with your legs crossed if they're standing up. It's getting on the edge of your seat and trying to hear what they're saying, getting at the same level with them. If they're sitting, you probably should be sitting too. It's better if you can.
Doing that mirror image. Yeah.
Little things that connect.
Yeah. Would you like to be able to customize your health insurance plan so you only pay for the benefits you need? Get your custom quote today. Go to SawyerHealthSolutions.com or call 239-677-9877. Sawyer Health Solutions. Great health coverage, affordable premiums, the perfect combination. Okay, so that's likability. And I wasn't writing fast enough when you were going through those. What was the second thing? I think you had 4 steps.
The next one was believability, because I thought it was too big of a jump to go from being liked to being trusted.
Okay.
So in between, I call believability, also could be called credibility.
Okay. So let's go into that. Let's go into that step. And I would assume that's showing your knowledge about what it is that you're talking about.
That and that you believe in yourself too. That's a lot of it, because if you don't believe your services offer 10 times what you charge, your customers never will. So I mentioned that right in the beginning of that chapter, that this believability is not just your customers believing in you, but you got to believe in yourself as well. And that was a big challenge for me too, because I always beat myself up a lot, especially when I was younger, during those early 8 or 10 years when I really, really struggled. It took me a long time to get past that. And what really helped me was joining Toastmasters. It's a speaking and leadership organization. I think they're the biggest nonprofit in the world. Yeah. But just being around those people and them hearing me give speeches, they say, "Why don't you think you know anything?" She said, they're the ones that helped me believe in myself. But until you really do have that solid foundation of self-belief, it's going to be tough to get the price you want to get, the money that you want to make.
Sure. So confidence.
Another one that I could share with you, that some do the speaking for you, like having a website. If people go, everybody's going to look you up anymore, especially if you're coming to their home. That's really a personal thing. And trust is huge. And a thing that creates believability is if you have a website, because if you don't, all of a sudden they're wondering what's going on here. They'll just go on to the next guy. In this day and age, if you don't have a website, it's going to be hard to compete. Another thing that creates believability for me is belonging to organizations like NARI, the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. If you could belong to a professional organization, Toastmasters, PCA, which is a professional painting organization, almost any industry you're in, there's some organizations to belong to, and I recommend that highly. When everything was turning around for me, that was one of the big game changers for me. Is once I joined NARI, I instantly took on the credibility with every one of those guys, even though there was guys in there that have been doing it for a long time, and I was still kind of a newbie. In the customer's eyes, I took on that confidence of being a professional.
Does that just show that, you're willing to be part of something bigger than yourself? I mean, like that you want, and you're obviously trying to learn a little bit more and things like that. Is that kind of where that comes in?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. You're always being judged. You're always on stage. Right. Yeah. Another thing is clarity. If people are going to believe you, if you can't explain what you do, they're going to think maybe you don't know it all that well yourself, or if you're vague or ambiguity is just not the right place for
Right.
something like that, because sometimes people think, well, this guy really, maybe he doesn't know it so well. So if you can clearly explain, and I'll tell you, I bet I get 20% of my jobs just because I explain what we do to the customer better than my competition does. So clarity is huge. And a great way to connect is that you need to be clear so they understand where you're coming from. They understand your motivations and what you're doing. You know, I don't just tell them what we do. I tell them why we do it too a lot of times. Give them way more information than they need, but it builds trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I work in health insurance, and, in fact, we're talking about trust now. So I want to dive into that just a little bit as well, because trust is, I think, the hardest thing to work on, the hardest thing to get. Or to earn from your customers is trust. How do you gain trust with somebody? And I think everything that we're talking about is part of that process. I think it's the whole relationship that you have with your customer is what gains trust. Experience gains trust. Being part of multiple groups gains trust, because that shows that you're taking your profession seriously. That you are being part of something that's bigger than just you. Being the expert in your field, not just trying to sell your product, and offer your product over and over and over again, but be the expert in the field. So not just advertising your company, but if you're a painter, and again, I don't know anything at all about painting, and I don't want to assume that, but you want to talk about the industry. Maybe there's new things going on with different types of paint or different types of tools or different methods that you use. And it's very good to share all of that stuff, I think, right? Because hey, I'm not just a guy pushing my services. I know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff that has to do with what I do. And it makes you the professional and the go-to person for that. And I think that that's where you can gain a lot of credibility. Speaking of credibility, I know one thing that I wanted to discuss today was testimonials. And I hear a lot about testimonials, and I'm going to acknowledge right now, I am horrible about getting testimonials. And I think that is the worst thing ever, because I have a lot of super happy customers, a lot of them. And I'm not using that to build more happy customers. So what is the best way to go about talking to your satisfied customers to get more satisfied customers from your experience with them?
How do you go about getting the testimonials?
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear. I actually created a form for it that I hand my customers at the end. It's well written out. I give it away for free it's in my book. As a matter of fact, it's a free download, but it just asks a couple of questions, mostly with the intention of eliciting a positive response. I don't want to say, what didn't you like about our work? But
Sure.
I do want to know that too. But getting testimonials, a lot of that is timing. Best time to ask is when they see the finished product. Maybe that wouldn't work the same for you in your industry, but when the customers come home and they see the outside of the house, and if I'm right there, that's when I ask them for a testimonial.
That's when they have that emotional response, so they're just excited and happy.
And if you could take it to the next level and get a video testimonial, even better. Everything you can do to create more trust with the customer, that it wasn't made up or it wasn't something someone just wrote down somewhere. Customer reviews are easy to find now. But on my website, if I have an entire page just for testimonials, and nobody would read them all, but just seeing it scrolling down and seeing the volume, it speaks a lot for what I do. People know I've had good experiences with my customers.
Right. And that's actually one of my other questions too. Once you do get them, and I'm going to go backwards here in a minute, but once you do get those testimonials, what do you do with them? Where do you put them? Is it just like a piece on a website, or are you posting this on your Facebook page? What are you doing with those once you get them?
You can use them almost like you would a business card or a brochure too. 2 or 3 or 4 of your best ones, you can just print them out and hand them to the customer. This is what people just like you thought of us. And it just builds a little bit of trust. I put them on my website. You could use them actually in a brochure if you wanted to. You could put them on a business card. I know there isn't a lot of room in some of those places, but on my website, I realized after I had such a long list, I thought I need some video ones too. So right on my home page, I have 2 or 3 different people I just was talking to them in the yard when they came home, and I asked them if they'd do a video testimony, and they said, I wouldn't know what to talk about.
Right.
And I said, well, just repeat what you just said right now.
Yeah.
And I would remind them a little bit, just turn on the camera. But it's that in the moment, that real authentic thing right there, where you're just right there with the customer.
Yeah. And I think that one of my issues too, when I've had people ask me for a testimonial for a service that I received from them, that's it. I mean, that's usually it. And I think 90% of the time, most of your customers are going to be like, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I'm happy with the job, right? And it's very general. And you mentioned that you have a form. So you
Hmm.
don't want to write the testimonial for them, but you kind
Right.
of want to lead them in a direction. Is that right? You kind of ask the loaded questions. How did you feel about my service, but about more specifically what they, were you happy with the time that it took to deliver the finished product and things like that. So you're kind of leading them into the answers that you're hoping to get.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And it's funny you mentioned testimonials. Maybe I should have told you right off that after I got done with the book, The Four Abilities, I thought there's still some things I'm missing. And I realized I needed to devote an entire chapter just to testimonials.
Sure.
And I did. And one of the topics under that chapter is how do you get a testimonial if the customer doesn't know what to say and doesn't want to write it? And one thing I do is I show them some other testimonials. Well, here's what other people said about us. Maybe you'll see some, like you can't write it for them, but maybe you'll see some similarities. And a lot of times they'll write it like that. And I even have one piece in that chapter, which is a little bit my editor was didn't think I should put it in because it didn't sound honest. And I position myself as pure honest when I'm with my customers
Sure.
in my business. But what the topic was, write the testimonial for them. And there is actually a way to do that. There's some people that are busy. After I'd ask some busy professionals, maybe 2 or 3 times and they didn't do it. And I said, would you mind if I did this? How about if I just, based on what you've said to me, I write the testimonial for you and I'll just keep it fairly vague, but I'll talk about the things you mentioned. And if you think that's okay, you could just sign off
Just
on it.
getting
And
your
they said,
stamp
yeah,
of
just do
approval.
that. That'd be fine.
Yeah,
And
okay.
you know what? I bet I've done that 20 or 30 times. I've never had a customer yet say, no, that's not what I wanted to say.
Right.
Every one of them is good as long as you don't get too crazy with it. I just talk about the things that people like. And I also learned a lot about what people like from me other than just the painting, because in the testimony, they say easy to talk to, easy to work with. The whole crew was pleasant.
Yeah, those are the
Things that
best
really weren't
compliments.
about the paint job.
Right. Yeah, those are the
Yep.
best compliments to get too, I think, because that says a lot more. When you
Mhm.
when you're getting these testimonials, and then you get them in your hands, and you're going to put them in the places that you want them to be seen on your website or on flyers or whatever the case is giving you the customer, or sorry, if the customer is giving you the testimonial, is that permission for you to use it, or do you also have to have permission from them to use their testimonial?
I asked them verbally if I could go ahead and put it in my marketing, but on my sheet, that testimonial collector form that I was telling you about,
Yeah.
there's a place for them to check mark before they sign that it's okay to use it in my advertising.
That way you kind of have like a little bit of a legal notice that, hey, I'm going to use that in the marketing. And I'm
Right.
assuming, because what I usually see, and this is what I would like to do on my own as well, is when somebody's giving a testimonial, you have like a little picture and their testimonial quote next to it and their name and everything. So because it has a picture in their name, or maybe no picture, but still has their name, that I was wondering about the legalities of that, if you'd have to have any kind of written permission to do that.
Yeah, I do let them know that I don't put in their phone number or their address or
Sure,
anything
no
like
personal
that.
info. Yeah.
And not too many even did the picture, except for my video ones.
Okay.
Those were the best ones. Probably I just never asked them if I could take their picture and put it with it. But yeah, I always ask them that. I say, I'm not going to use your information anywhere. I just the words and your name, your first and last name is all. I wouldn't even do that. But when you see a testimonial or you see a whole line of them in a magazine and there's just first names there, don't you question whether those are real or not?
I do. And, and if I'm Joe Schmo, and I figured if I'm questioning it, somebody else is probably questioning it as well. It's like, okay, they're just making some stuff up, kind of make it sound legit and everything. So
Yeah.
no, thank you for that, because testimonials, I think it should be one of the easiest things to do. It sounds like it would be, but again, I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. And actually, one final question too, before we get off the testimonial subject. Somebody like myself, I'm licensed in 31 states. So a lot of the work I do is virtual all over the country, which again, that makes the building trust thing a little bit difficult. But let's stay on the testimonial part of that. In your field, you're painting the house, and you're there when you finish it up, and they're standing next to you, and they're all happy and excited, and that's when you want to get that testimonial when they're all
Yep.
emotional and heck yeah, man, I'm going to say all kinds of good stuff about you. What do I do with somebody who's 5 states away, and they're happy, but I'm either going to be talking to them on the phone or via email or via text. Is there like an appropriate way or a better way than another to get that testimonial from the people that you're not really standing right next to?
Because you're not right there, you're doing virtual.
Yeah, geographically, I'm just nowhere near them.
I still see my testimonial form as working for that. I mean, I'd be happy to download that to you if you wanted to see it, because like I said, it just says, what was, name one or two things that you really liked about working with so-and-so, and describe an experience, a positive experience that you had. Like I said, I work the questions so they're meant to elicit a positive response.
Sure.
Although if something's not right, I want to know too, but that's a different guarantee. That's my permission to nitpick guarantee.
I love that.
that I use. Yeah. I think that testimonial form would work for you too, as well. And like I said, I could send that to you if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And it's just a matter of, trying to, I think I haven't done it because I just don't know the right way to do it, and I'm sure there are wrong ways, but I think just making that move and just saying, having that courage to ask somebody, hey, I made you happy. I'd like to make other people happy too. And I think by sharing your experience, it will allow me the opportunity to get in front of more people to see if I can help even more. So that would be great. And I think everything that we're talking about here also goes into the subject of branding, and I wanted to talk to you about that a little bit too. Branding your business, branding yourself. When we're talking about branding, what does that mean? What is branding your business?
There's business branding and there's personal branding. In my book, I talk about the personal branding because most service businesses are really as strong as the owner a lot of times. So however they feel about you as the owner, they're probably going to feel about your company. But it's not a reputation. Actually, I'm giving a talk on that topic in a couple of weeks here, and Jeff Bezos is famous for saying, personal branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I don't mean to speak ill of he recently passed away. But that's wrong. That's your reputation, what he's saying.
Exactly.
And it's not that. Branding is more the positive. It's what people will gain from working with you, not so much. And reputation is what they're going to learn about you by past experiences. So branding is more proactive
is branding kind of like what you want your image to be? Like, it's like, okay, here's how I want people to view me. When they see my logo, they see my business name, this is what I want them to think of. This is the emotion I want them to have.
It's positive. Exactly. It's positive going forward. Whereas reputation is kind of, in a way, it's behind you. It's the sum total of everything you've done in the past that people can find out about you. That's your reputation. But branding is going forward, how you want to be seen, how you want to position yourself in the marketplace.
And how do you do that? I mean, how do you, like, how do you determine what your brand is, right? I mean, I know that's probably the most important thing when you have your own business is, who am I, right? You have to have your identity. You got to have that figured out. Otherwise, you're never going to succeed because you don't have anything that you're trying to achieve. So you have to first come up with what you want your brand to be.
Yeah.
So after you do that, how do you achieve it? How do you get that image portrayed out there to the public?
How you create a strong brand?
Yeah. How do you build that?
I think everything has to gel. It has to be the same thing. You can't be out there saying, I'll give you a good job for a cheap price. If you're selling cheap, that's all you'll attract. And if you try to position yourself as just high end painting, and my customers, I don't even give them an option on paint. I buy the $80 a gallon paint, and that's what I use on their house. I get it for less because I'm a contractor, but I don't even give them the option of buying a lower grade. So everything we do, I say is the best, and it is. We've done that for so long now. Other painters recommend us. That's probably 20% of our business comes from other painters who don't spray aluminum and cedar sided homes. But it all is about positioning, how you look at yourself and how you communicate that to the world. If you want to be the best, I think you need to do everything that the top of the line, top shelf people do.
So it's the value of what you have to offer. Trying to build.
You have to live the lifestyle of the people that you want to work for.
Right. Yeah. And I think that value is overlooked a lot. I mean, in my business as well, nobody likes health insurance, right? It's very rare that we get a compliment. I absolutely love my health insurance plan. That just almost never happens, right? Because usually when you're using it, it's not a good situation. And when you're not using it, you're paying for stuff that you're not using. So who wants to do that? So it is a difficult field to build value. But you don't want to, like you said, it's not everything is based off of price. Yeah, everybody wants to be affordable, But just because you're the cheapest rate out there doesn't mean you're the best. And usually it's just the opposite, but yet you still have to be competitive. So branding, from what I'm getting from you, is just building the value in what you have to offer, not only your services, but the manner in which you deliver those services and things like that as well. And then being able to portray all of those things to the people that you're trying to offer those services to.
It's having a strong mission statement or value statement that you put out there. Maybe it's right there on your website. Nice, clear pictures. Everything you do is first class.
Copper Coast Gourmet Coffee. When fresh matters, we deliver it from the fields to the roasters and into your cup. CopperCoastGourmetCoffee.com.
And you'll attract that type of customer, I believe. And we finally have gotten to the point. It took a long time, but in the last 10 years, we finally just got to the point where we can just take the easiest, nicest, best jobs. And those are the people that usually call us. And there's a way to even get around. You get people that maybe you painted before, but it's a nasty house or they were hard to work for. I just tell those folks that it wouldn't be in your best interest if I do this kind of work, because it's easy to do. It's a low skill level, and we really don't make the time for that because we're busy with I don't want to say nicer homes, but we have other jobs. I talk to them about maybe if you call university painters or student painters, those kind of guys that are usually business majors that are just painting their way through college. I say you'll save a ton of money by going with them, and they're usually grateful for that. So I try to never tell anyone no. If I do, I give them an option, something else they can do. Yeah, give them the name of another guy that's just starting.
Yeah, that builds credibility and trust, right? I mean, you're not just looking out for yourself and, I can't help you, so therefore, bye-bye, right? Right. If I can't help, let me find you somebody who can, especially if you've been in the business for a long time, you know a lot about your competitors, or you should. I think every business owner should know their competitors as well as they know themselves. But if I can't help you with what I have to offer, let me get you to somebody who can help you. That way I can still help, because I think that honestly, that's where some of the best referrals come from. Hey, this guy couldn't help me, but he sure was nice. And he sent me in the right direction for me to be able to get the help that I needed. I think that goes a long way. And I think that goes back to the, getting credibility and trust, going to the trust subject. If you're getting people to trust you, they trust you because you're trying to help, not because you're trying to sell. And I think everything comes down to that.
Exactly. It's just a lot of things that all come together that create your brand, I think. And if you want to have be branded as the best and first class, I think you need to do everything first class. And one thing that I do that I haven't mentioned yet, it's probably one of the strongest trust builders, one of the strongest, if not the strongest one, is what I call risk reversal. And it's just what it sounds like. Actually, we don't, when you hire a service, a lot of homeowners, they're thinking, oh man, I hope this works out because I'm paying them whether it does or not. Right. Well, I tell my customer right there on the job is that you take no risk by hiring me. And they say, what do I mean? I say, because I won't turn a bill into you until you're happy. That's scary. And it was hard for me to say that at first because I thought it's opening the door to nitpicking. But I created a certificate, as I mentioned earlier, that's called Permission to Nitpick. Right. And I hand that to them. And it changes everything, the whole mindset that builds trust like you wouldn't believe. But people don't, and it didn't backfire on me like I thought it might. And a lot of painters I've talked to, they're afraid to do that just for that reason. It opens the door to a lot of nitpicking if they think, well, I could just complain, I can make this up, I can drag this out till I'm ready to pay. It's happened to me. I probably can count all the times in one hand where somebody's really taken advantage of me. Most people are happy
to pay for the services that they like. Yes, there is going to be the occasional person that's going to take advantage of that. But if you, look at how often that's actually going to happen compared to how often it's, not going to happen, people are going to, if they're happy with it, they are okay exchanging the money that job is worth. You're going to get the one or two, but don't change how you do business for the one or two, change it. And I like your permission to nitpick because one, it gives them a place to vent the nitpicks, right? I mean, it gives them a specific place to go for it and you're actually asking for it, but two, it helps you improve. I love that. I love where people can put complaints somewhere because 95% of the time they're legitimate complaints, small, big, doesn't matter, but it helps you build your business because sometimes as business owners or as employees or somebody that's part of the business that performs those services, we don't always see how it's perceived from the other side. And to see how it's perceived from the other side, sometimes it opens your eyes. You're like, okay, this is an area we've had a couple complaints on. It must be an area we need to work on. So that it gives you a great room to improve. And even if you're not doing things badly, you're just maybe haven't changed with the times. You haven't progressed and changed with, the newest and greatest of whatever's happening, the trends. It helps you follow those trends as well, because people are going to complain about something if they've seen, Joe and Mary down the street have this and I don't have this. Why don't I have this? So it kind of helps you follow those trends as well.
And the funny thing about that is if I'm giving a talk in front of contractors, I'll pick one out right away and I'll say, if I ask him his name, and I'll say, if something goes wrong on the job, and the owners complain, what are you going to do? And they'll just look at me like, what do you mean? I said, what are you going to do? So I'll listen to what they're saying. And if it's something that's not right, I'll fix it. I said, exactly. I said, we all guarantee, if you're a legitimate contractor, you're guaranteeing your work anyways, but nobody's using it. We're all assuming that liability of guaranteeing our work, but nobody's using it as a selling technique.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a way to sell yourself and build trust that doesn't cost a dime.
And it shows that you believe in your service. If you're shopping for a car, there's some cars out there that have those 10-year warranties. Most cars have like 5. If I buy something that usually has like a 5 or 10-year warranty, but this one has a 2, I'm thinking, they don't believe in their own work. Why should I believe in it? So you're right. I think that's something that's overlooked. If you have a warranty, which you should, everybody should have some type of warranty for what they do, post it and brag about it. Hey man, we can't warranty it forever, right? Nothing lasts forever, but certainly brag upon how much faith you have in your own product or service.
It does. It shows you believe in yourself. And if you think about it, they're going to do one of two things anyways. They're going to say nothing and just, or they're going to say something and make you, and hope that you'll make it right with them, which a lot of guys don't necessarily. If they can somehow spin it, it wasn't their fault. But if they're not happy, or if they're non-confrontational, they'll say nothing and they'll just never refer you, never use you. It only takes a click of a mouse now to tell everybody in the world in real time what just happened to them.
Right.
And so it isn't like you build a bad reputation over time now with the digital world the way it is. People find out right away.
So we were talking about testimonials, and then you just mentioned something too, where you're going to tell people this and that. Referrals. I think a referral is the other side of the testimonials. It's one thing for somebody to give you a testimonial that you can share with others. How do you get them to share their own testimonial with other people so you can get the referrals? Can you ask for those referrals, or how do you lead into that and try to get your current customers or past customers to refer you to new ones?
Yeah, I always believed in it. It's easier to earn the referral than to ask for it. But a lot of times too, homeowners or customers in general, they don't know that you make your living on referrals, or that keeps your advertising costs down. So I always think it's a good idea to ask, but I usually never ask for a referral or to keep me in mind unless I feel I've already earned it.
Sure.
And the way I do that is a lot of times I do, in my wow ability part of the book, is overpromise and still overdeliver. And just by doing more than what they even expected, I bring it up to them at the end. Little things like, if you were working inside, what's it take to change out the light bulbs if it's high up where they can't get to, or clean off the dust fan, or if you're outside, to paint the mailbox to match the house. Just those, believe it or not, it's those little things that they remember.
It is.
And it's easy to get a referral once you've done that, or it's even easier to get a testimonial if you've done a little bit more.
And of course, stepping back and, hey, if I was on the other side, if I was the customer, what would make me really, what would be the extra step? If I was receiving your services, what would be that extra step that would set you apart from, somebody else? So I think that we overlook that a lot too. How would I want to be treated? How do I want to be talked to? The follow-up. And speaking of follow-up, when you do a job, and every industry is going to be a little different with this on how or if you need to follow up. But is there follow-up on that? Or, do you call back or check in with them after, 6 months or after a year? Or, how do you do your follow-ups in your line of work? Yeah.
I haven't really followed up as much as I try to keep in touch with people. It's easier now that I'm using email a lot more and getting their email address. But honestly, I don't follow up with people over years. They usually get back to me. And it's mostly because I just constantly have new business coming in. And even though the houses we paint, when you spray aluminum, it looks good for 10 or 15 years.
Right, yeah.
Even though it looks that good, I still do a repaint at least once a week, which is crazy. They remember me after all those years. So that is probably the one thing I don't work on as much as I should is that following up. But mostly I make sure if they paid me, usually they're happy because they wouldn't have paid me. But another benefit of that, I tell my guys, my crew knows that. I say, hey guys, we're not getting paid if they're not happy. And somebody's got to go back and do the touch-ups if they're not happy about something. So our work is come out better. It's a win-win-win for everybody. The customer, for me, my crew does better work, and for them too, because then we don't go back on touch-ups nearly as much.
Yeah, and that's an extra expense. And I know it depends on your industry and how often you should follow up. As an insurance agent, I hear a lot that I might accidentally speak to somebody who already has our plans, which, that's a great compliment. That means that, hey, they, the word's getting out and they already have it. So I'm like, hey, great, you're in great hands. Do you still keep in contact with your agent? And you'd be surprised how many are like, no, I've had this plan for 4 years and I haven't heard back from my agent. I haven't talked to him since they sold it to me. And that bothers me, because that means that the agent was working hard to gain their business. And once they got it and they got their money, they were off in the wind. So in insurance, I say that you should be following up, probably twice a year, always around, the open enrollment time. And then, somewhere right in the middle, are you anything new? Has your family changed at all? Have your needs changed at all? And follow up with them. So again, industry to industry, it's going to vary a little bit with the follow up, but I think the follow up just shows that you appreciate their business, you appreciate them. But an industry like yours, where a job, is going to be good for 15 years, obviously that's going to be a much different story than in a situation like mine. But I think follow-up is very important, because that shows them that they are important to you for the long haul, not just for the initial job. And that goes a long way with me as a customer as well. If I get that call back from, whoever it is that I spoke to 6 months ago, and, I bought this from them, and they check back in with me, I'm like, okay, this guy, this guy's really keeping in contact with me, and, they appreciate me. So that does go a long way. We are almost out of time, so I want to make sure that I know it goes so quick,
Sure did.
but I want to make sure that you can tell everybody how they can get your book, because I'm going to be getting that myself. But how they can get your book and how they can contact you directly, if you have like an email or website address where they can ask you some more questions.
Sure. The best way to get my book, it's on Amazon, and it just type in either my name, Terry Begue, or in the search, or Attract and Keep Customers for Life. Or probably what's even easier is you could go to my website, and that's just my name, terrybegue.com. And on that, they can order my book. I got a ton of blogs on there. I'm always putting new stuff on. And it's mostly about that customer relation, that building your business through just caring more than everybody else, and showing that you care. So that's the best way, probably would be Attract and Keep Customers for Life on Amazon, or just go to my website. There's also freebies on the website too. Seven ways to grow your business without spending a dime. Things that you can do. And there's some good value on there. That testimonial form is also there. And a piece that I call the Power Six Pack, which is, as I mentioned, those papers that I hand my customers, 6 docs that I hand them, and nobody does anything like it. If you want to stand out from the crowd, use the Power Six Pack, and that's also free in the book.
Awesome.
Too.
Awesome. And just so everybody knows, Terry Begue. Begue is Begue, correct?
It doesn't look like it sounds right.
All right. I just want to make sure that they're typing it in right there. So, Terry, thank you so much, man. This is awakening, and I appreciate you talking to us. I hope that a lot of our listeners will go out and buy the book, because I think it's something that's very useful. I'm going to, because I think it's certainly some areas that I'd like to improve upon. And whether you are in insurance or you're a house painter, you're a mechanic, I don't think it really matters. I think it's pretty universal, getting, the likability and, believability, credibility, getting referrals, getting, testimonials and things like that. It's pretty universal to be a successful business person. So I think everybody can get a lot of use out of that. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
Great. I had a great time, Craig. Like you said, time goes so fast when you're with like-minded people, and
Right.
I really enjoyed myself. And I also am creating a course. That's what I've been doing here before the busy season starts again. I'm trying to get it done. People were buying my book. It got them inspired, but they really didn't know what steps to take. So now I broke it all down. It's in a course where it's going to be about a 2 or 3 week course. And if you did like one lesson plan a day, something like that. So it's going to be really nice, but that'll all be available if you sign up for my newsletter. Everything's right there on terrybegue.com. But I had a good time today, Craig. Thank you so much. I could talk about this all day.
Oh, me
and
as well.
It's just I had a good time listening to you too as well.
Oh, thank you. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do this again soon.
All right. Well, thank you. It's great
Terry.
being here.
Thank you for joining us this week. Go to our website at thebizreveal.com to catch all of our past episodes. We're available on all podcast apps, or you can watch any of our episodes on the Biz Reveal YouTube channel. I'm Craig Sawyer, and this is the Biz Reveal. Till next time.